Okay, this is part 2 of the book review about Plant Powered Plus by William Bulsiewicz, the gastroenterologist. I did a previous plant book review of part 1. So basically, I'll walk on the treadmill for an hour and a half or so, and I read the first half of the book the first time. So I read the whole book in 3 hours. It's a pretty easy book to blow through fast. So what was good about it in the second half? I actually think the first half was better than the second half. The book got worse. He says you should try to eat 30 plants a week. I think that's too much. It takes a lot of effort to shop for 30 different plants, and these, backward ass third world savage places eating that are healthy into their old age and no hypertension. They don't eat 30 different plants a week. You don't need to eat that many. I mean, if you want, go ahead. It'll keep you busy. You'll learn some variety, but that to me is overdoing it. McDougall, said the same thing. A lot of these simple countries where they were pretty healthy, they didn't eat too much. The Papua New Guinea, they were eating 92% of their calories from sweet potatoes, okay? The Kempner diet, they were eating what? Rice, fruits. All right. He did at the end of the book talk about psychology, but he doesn't mention Christianity. There really wasn't much positive in the second half of the book. It sort of really went downhill, I thought, the book. One thing you notice, as I said, notice that this guy is beloved on the internet. He is headed towards being rich and famous. Good for him. But I'm also telling you, this is really sort of what I would call the high-fat phony playbook. Basically, medicine is divided up, and health and nutrition is divided up into separate schools and groups. The most famous, the most popular are what I would call the bro science. Bro science is the guys that are selling tons of supplements, okay? They're going to tell you, every new supplement, you should check it out. And you know who that would be. People like Peter Attia, Rhonda Patrick, that whole group, okay? And don't get me wrong, some of them are pretty smart, charismatic, and nice. They're usually charismatic and nice and good looking and intelligent. That makes the people like them, trust them, and believe them, and then they sell stuff, okay? Then the next school is what I would call the high-fat phonies, okay? And I think this book is an example of what I would call high-fat phonyism. Why do I say that? Because if you go back to Kempner, if you read the animal studies like Armstrong, if you read the atherosclerosis like Blankenhorn, David Blankenhorn, you read Pritikin, you read, Dr. McDougall, Esselstyn, you want to get fat as low as possible to prevent diabetes, to prevent obesity, to prevent hypertension, to prevent atherosclerosis, and that's going to subsequently help you prevent stroke, prevent atrial fibrillation, prevent congestive heart failure, prevent impotence, prevent blindness, prevent hearing loss, prevent spinal degeneration, cerebral degeneration. That's the name of the game, okay? And as Pritikin and McDougall said, it's impossible to be too low in fat, including to be too low in these so-called essential fats, omega-6, omega-3s, okay? It's a non-issue. It's impossible to be too low in protein with any naturally chosen diet. So those are non-issues. In this book, he recommended all inflammatory bowel disease patients, or irritable bowel syndrome patients eat, I think it was irritable bowel syndrome, eat the Mediterranean. What is the Mediterranean? About the only thing the Mediterranean diet forbids is processed food. Okay, he did say alcohol was bad, and he recommends not drinking any. But still, there's all this meat and oil in there. The Mediterranean diet is very overrated. It's one of those things that you say Mediterranean diet, and it sounds nice. Oh, you are a sophisticated person. You said the word Mediterranean diet. But in reality, it's BS, okay? When Ansel Keys recommended it back in the 1950s and 60s, it meant primarily a plant-based diet. What else does he talk about? He recommends sort of prebiotics. You can just eat your plant foods and get all the fiber you need. Curcumin, melatonin, vitamin D supplements. He has a supplement company, so anybody that sells something usually is going to exaggerate the benefits. He talks about good fats. He literally used the word good fats, and to me that's a major alarm bell that people are promoting all the high-fat phony stuff. He recommends people eat nuts and seeds, and extra virgin olive oil, soy, omega-3, fish, and chocolate, and coffee and tea. I don't think there's health benefits to any of those foods. I'd recommend 100% avoidance of all those things, okay? What else does he say? And by the way, nobody's heard of me. I get, 100 views on my video. Okay, that's a joke compared to the high-fat phonies. Those guys, they got millions of views. They're like an internet-connected business. They all help each other. My channel's not even monetized, In the plant world, I'm known as the Spartan vegan bad boy jerk, divisive asshole. Nobody even speaks to me. But, it is what it is. Okay, let's see what else. But what I'm trying to say is, oh, so here's one thing I thought was funny. He talked about the PreDimed study, which is a bogus study. And one group in that, one cohort, was eating 4 tablespoons of olive oil a day. And he claims they did very well, and that's a reasonable thing to do. And to me, that sounds insane. He described that as being 480 calories. Well, if somebody's eating, 2,000 to 2,500, that's about 20 to 25% of their total caloric intake of liquid fat in the form of olive oil. That's insane. That's crap. Okay, and then on top of that, if you're also eating all this other fat stuff, nuts and seeds, soy, omega-3, fish, and chocolate, how are you going to eat that much fiber? Don't get me wrong. I know there's some fiber in nuts, some fiber in seeds, but still, where's the logic there? And he allows eggs and fish, animal food. This is what I mean by the slippery slope, okay? You start eating eggs and fish, and what's next? A little poultry, a little steak, a little olive oil, a little canola oil, a little fried food. I mean, I don't believe in a slippery slope. I think you have to say, no oil, not one drop, like Esselstyn says. Because, it's very hard to get people to eat vegan to begin with. You start telling them they can have olive oil and all this other. And soy, the purpose of soy is to sterilize the proles. We can say anti-fertility food. The fish got HG, mercury, full of estrogenic chemicals, super high in fat. Salmon's 50% protein, 50% fat. It's a terrible food. And he said shellfish was okay. No, I don't agree with any of that stuff. Again, I know he's real smart. I'm going to bet you, here's what I think is going on. This guy's really smart. He can do whatever he wants. He can figure things out. He's smart enough to figure all this stuff out. And I think basically the way it works is if you want to make big money, you have to play ball with the corporations. And if you're going to play ball with the corporations, you have to promote all this stuff. And you'll notice other high-fat phonies promote even more of it. He promotes less high-fat phony stuff than the other high-fat phonies. You're going to hear them saying, oh, the old people need to eat more protein. Oh, the old people absolutely have to have omega-3 supplements. Yeah, right. Okay, that's sort of my fate, to be poor and to tell the truth, Not many people are telling the truth these days. Jeff Nelson over at Veg Stores, he tells the truth. I'm telling you the truth. There's a few other people out there, not too many, and we don't get too many views, and we're pretty much ostracized and hated. That's what happens to you nowadays. The functional medicine group, the beta, the bro science, you're persona non grata if you don't sell supplements. Persona non grata if you don't, by all the corporations, all the people with real money to sponsor you. Coffee and tea are bogus, the caffeine, the microplastics. Forget about it. Okay, he allows eggs, come on, eggs are, cholesterol, atherosclerosis producing food. So let's see what else. So anyways, basically, this is probably like a roadmap of what you have to do if you want to become popular and famous and get onto the high-fat phony interview circuit. To get onto that's where you have a chance to make some money. And, any clinical doctor, most of them are pretty tired and exhausted of doing clinical medicine. It really tries to work you into the ground and squeeze as many billing codes out of you as it can. So, this is life on Easy Street, promoting stuff for corporations. It's a walk in the park compared to showing up every day in a clinical environment and having some bean counter on your ass with a whip saying, faster, faster, generate more billing codes. So it's pretty understandable why anybody would do it. And when Nelson made some video, he said some of the people promoting olive oil are getting paid over $1 million a year, to promote olive oil. So, I can understand why they do it, okay? I'm an old school Christian. I'm going to tell the truth to the end. I'm like the Irish monks, keep the truth alive. Somebody's got to do it. I'll probably get deleted from the internet. Someday some smart young person will find my book and go, oh, this is the truth from the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. Let's keep it alive. And it'll just, basically, the truth is very fragile. There's no money in the truth. There's no money in helping the pros. Pros don't have any money. As far as the big rich people up above are concerned, the pros are a bunch of talking monkeys. They don't care about the pros. They laugh at the pros. Anyway, so that's it for the book. I really don't think it had that much to offer. There wasn't really much new in it. So it is what it is. It's okay. It's basically, for somebody who doesn't know anything, it's a big step up to at least learn you got to eat more plants. And it did emphasize getting the majority of your calories from plant. But this is a really smart guy. If he wanted to, he could have wrote a really serious book going into all the details. But he recognizes it's a loser. Hardly anybody will be interested in that. Hardly anybody will read that. Nobody will give him any money or interview him. doing what he's doing, he's going to become rich and famous. He already is. And I think he's going to go even more so. Be a big star in that echelon of the high-fat phony school. Because that's the high-fat phonies that basically, in the mind of the public, replaced, sort of McDougal and Pritikin. Okay? I'm just sort of this vestigial character with Nelson and a few others trying to tell people the truth, but we're silenced in the corner. We don't really have much influence. So that's the reality. There it is.